Guy invented Holmes' vision for the last film, and I think it worked out extremely well.
Clip wings. Now, blunt his beak.
He pictures how the fight will go in his head, and we watch that, and then we see it done in real time.
We've tried to improve upon it. We've tried to sort of evolve it in this next iteration.
Do you want to track out of the previs as well as tracking into it? You track in, previs.
And track out and go straight to action.
And then track out to action.
It'd be nice if it's basically the same shot. Yeah. It's the in,
well, let's
it's the out.
Well, I didn't want to repeat the same Holmes vision.
Half speed,
3, 2, 1, action!
Guy made it very clear from the get-go what he wanted to create, and he was true to his word.
And I can tell that he's really, really giddy and happy about some of the tech stuff he was able to do, and to keep infusing this film with that kind of Guy Ritchie style.
The speed of the Phantom camera allowed us to sort of, I hope, do something original.
I'll go back that way, and then I want to bring you back.
He knows what he wants, and he knows how to shoot it. Has a great way to move that camera. He knows how to make it look. He has a great sense of the pace. He has a great sense of the characters.
Guy did incredible work on the first movie. It was just the perfect marriage of seeing how a character works in an action scene and then the physicality works, and it married the two. It was cool visuals married with, wow, this is what our character is thinking, and that was really unique.
I do quite like action sequences, but I'm only interested in action sequences if I can somehow add something new to it.
And action.
We said, okay, for him to just think it and enact it, we saw that. We saw that perfectly in the first film. So how can we, if we're ever going to use it again in this movie, what can we do that changes that up?
What we've done is we've introduced moments where it doesn't work quite as well as expected.
There's different endings.
You see some of Holmes's limitations in the first time if he's not going to imagine someone else might interfere with what he plans to do. And then you see his actual strengths the second time, because if he knows someone is interfering with what he's planning, he's figured out how to deal with that.
Come now. You really think you're the only one who can play this game?
Moriarty is very much, both in the books and in our films, sort of Holmes's dark twin. He is very much a match for Holmes because he is equally intelligent.
Looking back at Doyle's stories, and particularly his literary sentiments regarding kind of the Holmes versus Moriarty of it all, it just seemed like it had to have a bit more gravitas and be a bit more exciting and challenging and all that stuff.
Action.
And we get a sense in the great game that they're playing is that they can match each other move for move. And so we've applied that to Holmes' vision as well. And so Moriarty has his Moriarty vision, which matches Holmes's vision.
Trap arm, target, weakness.
Which leads to an interesting complication, which is, where does that go? If they continually know exactly what the other person's going to do, well, how do you end the fight?
It seemed like a perfect opportunity to have simultaneous vision that would allow you to understand that both Moriarty and Holmes were working on the same intellectual plane.
And it really looks incredible because you have these two actors, no stunt guys, physically doing all these actions, and they're really making contact with each other, which is incredible.
And again, it stopped us from repeating ourselves in the first one.
Now, are you sure you want to play this game?
I'm afraid you'd lose.
Moriarty is the archetype for the Blofelds and the Bond villains that were to come. That mixture of brilliance of mind had gone slightly wrong.
What makes him fascinating to me is that he's also a genius. He's as brilliant, if not more brilliant, than Holmes.
We've tried to stick to the idea that Conan Doyle originally had for Moriarty, that he's an academic and hides away in university. And he seems like the least likely villain that you can imagine.
I shall endeavor to find the most creative of endings for the Doctor and his wife.
We talked a lot about who to cast, and we felt it was really important that we cast Moriarty, as opposed to, oh, that's this guy that we know really well from a bunch of other things playing Moriarty.
And this isn't the first occasion that Mr. Holmes has inconvenienced me in recent months. The question is, what to do about it?
He just felt like he was the best qualified chap for the role. I mean, we looked at everyone, but there was something about Jared that just seemed fresh and pertinent.
It was really good fun and also a challenge because it's tough to avoid the cliches. And the cliches, it's been copied so many times and it's been parodied by Mike Myers as Dr. Evil. So it's a challenge to find an original way through it.
I like that he's not twirling a mustache and he doesn't have endless monologues that give away everything that was cool about him by saying what his plan is. He never tells me he's going to kill me and then leave me there with a way to get out.
It doesn't realize until too late that it has swum into a trap.
You know, in creating this supervillain, he has to equal Holmes in every way, and we thought that we played around early on with this chess metaphor.
Your move.
Well, there was an idea at one point during the script process that it was a game, and whether Moriarty's motivation was the stimulation of having a game with someone that was his intellectual rival.
And then we thought, well, is that too obvious? And it was only because we, in many ways, exploited it too much. This was early drafts of the script, and we thought, you know what, let's pull that back a little bit and just have 3 key areas where we hit on that.
It's just the sense of the game between the two of them that is stimulating to them both.
I have the utmost regard for your talents. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Which is authentic to the books, that they need one another. Holmes needs Moriarty as much as Moriarty needs Holmes.
A 5-minute game? If you think you can manage it.
My name's Adam Ralph. I'm a director of the English Chess Federation, and I'm a technical advisor on the film, specifically for the chess scenes. I think they needed somebody to construct a game on which the whole scene could be based, and that's what I did.
Well, take all the credit, why don't you?
Absolutely. It's a metaphor for the action that goes on in the rest of the film, specifically sacrificing a queen in order to achieve victory in the long game. And the game we selected was chosen because it features an attractive finish, a queen sacrifice, leading to checkmate, and it just fit perfectly.
I think you've just lost your most valuable piece.
Winning strategy sometimes necessitates sacrifice.
First, I simply trawled through a database that I had of queen sacrifices. And then I was reminded of a game that was played in Santa Monica in 1966 by a Danish grandmaster called Bent Larsen, who's most famous for losing 6-0 to Fischer. And that game came into my head.
He's making this all up, by the way.
Absolutely.
This is just a game of chess for him.
King to Rook 2.
Playing blindfolded, played without sight of the board. And so in this case, neither player can actually see the board. They're playing simply in their head.
Bishop to bishop 7.
Queen takes knight pawn.
It's something that isn't often done nowadays, but it was done quite frequently in the 19th century. And this is set in 1890, so it's perfect. They may have seen chess grandmasters doing public displays of exactly the same technique.
Bishop to bishop 8. Discover check. And incidentally, mate.
It wasn't actually in the original script. It was a development later on, and I think it works very well. Everybody here seems to play chess, so it's quite nice.
Chess has been my main pastime since I've been making films on set. Most people may or may not know this, but the director's arguably the most bored person on set when you're moving from one location to another location. The director's the only guy that hasn't got a job. So I end up inevitably playing a lot of chess. I have done on all my films.
This film is a lot about fun. It's dramatic, but it's a lot about fun. And I mean, in order to do that kind of film, you have to have fun yourself, you know.
Right.
Except for the chess thing, which then that's no fun when you play chess. It's serious.
There's some very good players on set. Some very good players. He plays a very good game. He plays a very good game.
Would you like me to recommend your next move?
The whole metaphor of good versus evil, it fits very well with a game of chess. And in fact, historically in fiction, people have fabricated, completely made up games between Holmes and Moriarty. And I think it's very surprising that it doesn't feature in the stories at all. Chess would have been a perfect metaphor. It's probable that it doesn't feature because the author didn't play himself.
The greatest success of the film is that our bad guy is really, really, really done right. And doing a bad guy right is the hardest thing to do in this kind of show.
To my dear friend, Dr. John Hamish, Watson.
In general, what we really wanted to try and do this time was run with the relationship between Holmes and Watson, because in the first we had to work quite hard to introduce the characters, to introduce the world, and to give not backstory but give a sense of what to expect from them. And now people know that, we were able to sort of start from the get-go at a faster rate and with more, I wouldn't say eccentricity, but with more breadth.
Here it comes. You are so predictable.
Had you and Mary not been so hell-bent on a wedding, we might have easily...
We want to keep coming up with great scenarios where they can be working in harmony with each other and yet bickering at the same time.
Would you have any brown shoelaces? Just to tie together the ensemble.
Hold on. I said I'd lend you a jacket and you're wearing my best suit. Give me my hat back.
Don't you have an extra one?
This is the extra one.
Jude and Robert are good mates. They're both very talented, and they enjoy their job. So, you know, it makes my life much easier.
Come on, dude, it's 1989 and we're at a rave up and we all just went out together. How are we doing it? You're there. I'm here.
One of them.
I feel about Jude the way Sherlock feels about John. He's the best partner a guy could ask for.
What is really exciting is when you get to know a character and you really feel comfortable that your interpretation of the character is working, and just trusting that you can trust yourself, trusting your instincts, trusting a sense of clarity as to where and how that person will respond and what they'll say.
Took off like a monkey from a box. I may need one of those later.
And it's your stag night. If you want a monkey in a box or anything of the like, I'll see to it that you get it. Keep these, they're a wedding gift. And I'm not around about tonight.
It was a really rewarding process in the first film. We didn't quite know how it was going to work, but we worked this kind of strange equation out. And to be honest, the one thing I was scared about coming into the second was that would we be able to just pick it up again, or was it something that just happened? And from the get-go, from our rehearsals over at Robert's house prior to filming, we really slipped straight back into it. And if anything, because we didn't have to get to know each other, this one, I hope, has benefited from the fact that we were working that process from before shooting rather than discovering it as we went along.
I'm a bit more dramatic and self-flagellating than some artists, so I'm very passionate, I guess. And I think that was another nice thing with Jude, is that he's very kind of even-keeled about the whole thing, so that no matter how kind of far out I go in trying to do my thing and our thing, he always kind of counterbalanced that nicely.
Would you prefer I joined you in the fashion faux pas of wearing fine military dress with that heinous handmade scarf? Clearly one of your fiancé's early efforts. Oh, how I've missed you, Holmes. Have you? Why? I've barely noticed your absence.
To his great surprise, Holmes finds he can't get along without Watson, that he needs his companion, not just because it boosts his ego, because Watson is his biographer, after all, his Boswell, as Holmes puts it. But he's there to, in some ways, balance out the things that Holmes doesn't do, can't do. The fair sex is your department, for example, Holmes says to Watson.
Are you happy? What? At this moment, are you as happy as you would be on your honeymoon in Brighton?
I mean, Watson's split down the middle between being sensible and doing what his heart wants him to do.
That's the dilemma Watson faces. He wants the good life with his wife, a safe life, a secure life, and yet there's a little bit of the old soldier in him and the thrill of the chase. You know, he undoubtedly has great times when he's on a case with Holmes.
Thus, our relationship...
Relationship?
Very well, partnership, has not yet run its course.
You know, some people have said, oh, well, he and Holmes are gay, and of course there's some quite funny little, not exactly allusions to that in Guy's films, but it kind of skates on the knowing surface of that quite well, I think.
Finally got me to go to Paris with you. You and I in Paris together, like a honeymoon without Mary.
We always believe we can do better, and I think the relationship is funnier, more extreme, and more emotional, which is great, which is very satisfying.
I'm here to avoid a dire catastrophe.
Well, Mycroft is Sherlock's cleverer brother. Basically, Mycroft is as brilliant as him and as brilliant in deduction as he is.
He's this kind of agoraphobic, highly connected, sort of politico super genius.
If the concerns of two nations, which shall remain nameless, but I can tell you they speak French and German, are not dealt with tonight, I shall be forced to go to Switzerland.
The difference between Mycroft and Holmes is that Sherlock is very much a man of action, gets out there, whereas Mycroft tends to be, is even more introverted, even stranger, and so likes to stay at home, basically.
Excuse me.
He's not interested in ordinary people at all. He's interested in great movements of state and in moving things around like a sort of chess person. And he's totally misanthropic. In the books, he belongs to a club called the Diogenes Club, which is described as a club for the unclubbable, for people who are so unsociable. There's no talking allowed, and it's just people keep themselves to themselves. And there's one stranger's room where you can receive guests and you might have a word with them. And that's it. His routine never varies. He's always to be found on a path between his home and the Foreign Office, where he has some sort of nebulous job, apparently, keeps stitching the world order together, or in the Diogenes Club, where he's just, you know, filling himself with wine and coffee and cigars and reading books, I suppose.
Good evening, by the way. No, he doesn't.
There was a decision made early on that he has a problem touching other people without his gloves on, and even then it's a bit of a problem for him. You are here for a far more important reason than my stag party.
You know, he's nothing like as slow-witted as you've been leading me to believe, Shirley. You're quite right, Dr. Watson.
Watson probably doesn't know much about him, and I think Holmes enjoys that.
Your health, Doctor, to a fate worse than death.
The very fact of Sherlock having a brother shocks Watson when he first discovers it. And it kind of shocks the reader when you first read them, because you just think of Sherlock as being sort of born out of, you know, some special mystical stuff and not coming from a family. And having a brother is the only person on Earth who calls Sherlock Holmes Sherlock. Everyone else, you know, Watson famously calls him Holmes, and everyone calls him Mr. Holmes, or Mr. Sherlock Holmes, or whatever, but not Sherlock. Only a brother would do that.
Loitering in the woodshed again, are we, Mikey? Good evening, Shirley.
An idea of mine, because I thought it would sort of give this sense of it, is that he calls me Mikey and I call him Shirley. Which is the sort of thing brothers would do if they'd been gifted with such bizarre names as Sherlock and Mycroft.
Stephen Fry, they love to describe him in London as a national treasure, and I think you spend a little time with him and you feel that way too.
Really?
Stephen Fry is fantastically well known in this country and is always on television doing quiz programs and things.
You've seen him on QI, giving him all his clever patois. Well, he's like that in the flesh. Which is very rewarding, And we have a much smarter set and cast and crew due to Stephen Fry and his wisdom.
There is a lot of him in Mycroft, oddly. So that's why it's such a brilliant piece of casting.
He's a gentleman, and he has a sort of 19th century quality to him, an old-fashioned, in a good way, sense of amazing scholarship, erudition, a joy in knowledge for knowledge's sake, for the pleasure of knowledge.
He's kind of like a walking encyclopedia. So oftentimes it would be easier just to ask him than refer to any of the research material we had, because sometimes it's not entirely accurate, and he is always entirely accurate.
Yes, that's a very good point. I suppose somehow I was talked into consenting to one particular scene in which Mycroft certainly reveals more of himself than has perhaps ever been revealed of Mycroft in the past. Not to put too fine a point on it, it's a nude scene. Mycroft nude is the promise.
Well, I must say you are rather charming, Mr. Holmes, if somewhat unconventional.
Well, I think
So it's a charming idea.
Exactly.
There's so much we don't know.
Exactly.
Why not?
Most charming. Thank you. I shall be in my room.
It's just something about the idea of a man, because he's so utterly antisocial. And he happens to be having Mary Mawson staying, Watson's fiancée, staying at his house, but he's so unused to other people except his manservant that he just wanders around his house naked. And he sees her there, "Good morning, my dear," and just chats to her as if nothing's happened while she's in a complete state.
Stanley, come here!
Don't have you running away like that. I couldn't have jumped further, harder, faster, higher. When I was asked if I was interested in Mycroft, I thought it was a wonderful gig. The sort of heavy pomposity about him that if I'm honest, I know people see in me, and so I felt I was suitable. I can't claim to look much like Robert, but people seem to accept it, that I'm an older brother, so I'm thrilled.
Wake up, we're here. Brace yourself, we're about to be violated.
They were so cynical.
They're taking my luggage. Laugh them away, Watson. I have her bag.
It's true to say that both Conan Doyle and Guy Ritchie have a very great appetite and love of the of travellers and gypsies.
Well, film needs colour, and gypsies usually deliver when it comes to colour. And we needed reasons to get into Europe, and gypsies seemed to allow us both the colour and a ticket to the other side of the water.
Gypsies were very much a part of the sort of the 19th century thing. There's a certain Gothic romance in gypsies. Obviously, they feature heavily in Bram Stoker's Dracula and other things, and we were looking for ways to make our heroine interesting, and to make her a gypsy princess seemed like a good starting point.
Sim is a gypsy fortune teller, but she's actually quite a bit more. And she essentially is the linchpin of unraveling this very, very complex case.
She's very much a sort of mysterious and Dickensian, broad sort of Conan Doyle character who also has the sort of spice and balls, if you like, of a Guy Ritchie character.
Who are you two?
You know, she's seen a lot of stuff, and so it makes her kind of related to Holmes in a way, because she's also been, to the darkest places in a way. And she has seen stuff that makes her aware of the darker side of humanity.
We were all big fans of Noomi, but Noomi was she took it so seriously, Noomi. When she turned up for an interview, she really meant it.
I mean, she sold it too. She's like, I have a little gypsy blood, Come on! So we all met with her and we thought she could really bring something to this character. She's got the strength, she's so interesting, she's willing to go for it. Seemed like both from what she would put on the screen and how she would work with us behind the screen seemed to really match up with what we were looking for.
Noomi's extraordinary. She is, in my opinion, really quite unique in what she contributes to films at the moment as a young woman. She's brilliant.
I've always been really interested in the gypsy culture, and how they live. It's kind of, they are always on the edge. They want total freedom in a way. but they are kind of homeless. So when this came to me, I was really excited, and I was like, couldn't wait to get into, to start to dig and to go deeper into the whole gypsy thing. So I've been, you know, I learned this gypsy song, and I'm learning to dance, and we will have this great dance scene in the camp, and I speak some Romani in the movie as well.
I wanted to give her a real freedom, and I'd found a great picture in Harper's, the fashion magazine in the 1890s, of a woman hunting in a very short skirt, and I thought, that's a good look. She's obviously very able, she's very feisty, and she needs freedom. She doesn't need the confines of Victorian clothing, so we did quite a free adaptation there.
I like physical stuff. She's not a trained fighter, or she doesn't have any moves that she always do or anything like that. It's much more urgent and, you know, into the situation. You have to be really creative. You have to find, you know, what would my character, what will she do in this situation? It's never been anybody who's telling me, you know, exactly what I'm supposed to do. And it suits me very well.
And it's only on the first act.
I think Guy Ritchie's one of the most enjoyable directors I've ever worked with. He is smart as a whip, fantastically curious, and an amazing technical grasp of filmmaking.
He runs probably the most efficient, relaxed set I've ever been on.
I'll be in my room.
Be in my room.
Yeah.
And go.
I think, yes.
But he's great. He knows exactly what he wants, and he gets it. He goes after it. It's refreshing.
Isn't it blended?
Yeah.
It's so conspicuous.
I'll
It's subtle.
back to number one. It's not bad, something like that. It's so overt, it's covert.
It's a well-oiled machine at this point.
And also, you can be slightly more discreet on that, on the first line. You were a bit like... It was a bit... Yeah.
Okay, how much more is there?
How much more is there?
How much more is there?
Yeah, give it one of those, and then... Any chance of a cup of tea? You're not sure who it is going to give you that cup of tea.
It doesn't feel like work. So, and I try not to make it feel like work. So I'd like to think that we remain creative up until the very last moment.
Okay, carry on. Do it. How kick? Yeah. Just one of them.
What's wonderful about his approach is his confidence, and he had a great confidence in the first film, and a great sense of clarity about what he wanted to bring out of it and what he was bringing to it.
I think if you ask any actor on a film set, the one thing you most want, first off, and it's the most important thing, is to trust the director. So that when the director says cut, it means he's got what he wants, and what he wants is what's best for the film. And if he says go again, and you thought, well, that was really good, he knows why he's going again.
You have to start at a good place with the material. You don't want to show up on the day and say, what should this be about? You should know basically what you want to get out of a scene, and then what you get to do is discover things on the set.
Sometimes it's crazy making because we know that lack of preparation doesn't make for a spontaneous performance. So we tend to work our asses off and then be spontaneous on top of it. So really, to do it the way we like to do it, I think it's a full-time job. You got to do it all day long. You have to have the scenes in the best possible shape they can be in, and then you have to play with them on top of that.
Like you said, if it starts to go on, it will just be like... it's how much information we need to get out. I find him... What is it at the moment? Hey, you could run from me. What kind of a friend are you? You give me all this money, and I'm
Jude, he's our standout thinker these last couple days. He's coming up with all the right ideas.
It's just a case of keep an eye on each other. Everyone arrives different every day with a different energy and a new idea, and we want it to get faster and better and bigger and brighter and all those things.
Yes, that's all it takes. Yes. So easily pleased.
It's going to be a smooth rest of the shoot with this sort of attitude.
Right, check the gate on that.
In the opportunity to do a second movie, we wanted to make sure that we could kind of up the stakes, up the action, and up the scope of the movie.
I think we all agreed we wanted it to be more exciting, funnier, more thrilling, more mysterious than the first.
It's not, tethered to London. They begin in London, but they go all over the place.
Story starts in London. It goes basically through the countryside very fast and to the coast, hops across the channel, winds us down to Paris, then from Paris to Germany, and from Germany to Switzerland.
There is a shorthand in the creative process, particularly when it came to number 2, because we pretty much had the same team. So, yeah, everyone, it was that much easier, number 2, than it was in the first one, because everyone knew what we were doing.
One of the things that worked, I think, very, very well on the last one was the recreation of Victorian London using a combination of real locations and visual effects to sort of create this world of London that one hadn't seen before. And we thought, wouldn't it be fun to do the same on a bigger scale, to do it in Europe, to show Paris in the 19th century, to show Strasbourg at that time, to get a sense of continental Europe in the same way that we've shown London, and give a sort of reality to the world that wasn't possible before you had the sort of sophisticated visual effects that we have now.
Quite seldom do you film where the story's set. So we do the usual thing, which is that when we're confronted with a location on the page, our designer, Sarah, comes up with imaginative ways of creating that. She has an fantastic ability to go to a location and see it differently.
Trying to kind of come at them with a fresh approach, you know, because we all know these locations, and, you know, it's the practicality. We have to shoot within London. And, you know, so it's kind of, as much as possible, looking upon them as a kind of blank canvas that you build upon them. You know, the Hampton Court Gardens is the Eiffel Tower. And the other reason why we're here is that we have King Henry VIII's kitchens, which is doubling for our Paris kitchens circa 19th century.
This is Wollaston Manor, owned by the Rothschild family and looked after by the National Trust. And this is standing in for our Hotel de Triomphe in Paris. And when we see it on the film, it's going to be 4 or 5 stories high, so we're adding some more stories and altering the outside. We got a slight head start here because obviously Wollaston Manor is completely based on French architecture. It's Frederick Rothschild who built it in the 1870s, was quite a Francophile, and he commissioned a French architect who designed and built it.
We have a French DP, of course, Philippe, who's appalled at our interpretation of France, but it's France when we have to do France in the UK. It has been virtually a different set every day, every other day. There's just been so many sets.
So where are we now?
Do you know, I'm not quite sure where we are. I came in, well, we're certainly in a munitions factory. I think we're in England. I believe we're in London. I have no idea where we are in London. I got into a blacked-out car, and next thing I know, I'm here. 2, 1, and action.
Now, would you like to play this game?
We're in Hatfield House, which is one of the more famous royal houses around London. I believe Queen Elizabeth I was told she was going to be queen in one of the buildings out the back.
Might I trouble you just to hear? For an inscription.
That's from, yeah, this is Moriarty's humble library. We had to knock a third off the size yesterday because it was looking rather too impressive.
Wilton's Music Hall is a music hall. It was built in about the 1850s, 1858, I think, and closed pretty soon after. And then it kind of struggled on and got saved from the bulldozers in the 70s, and it's still now used as a performing arts space. It's such an incredible kind of starting point. You know, we put in all the balconies and the crystals and things, and because it is a music hall space, the idea of, you know, having the trapeze artists, and, you know, there would have been acrobats and things, but it's all slightly, it's a way of girls showing their legs and giving the guys a thrill, so.
Reichenbach Falls is the classic watershed moment, is the right word to use. It's where Conan Doyle originally killed off Sherlock Holmes. And he really did kill him off. And of course there was such protest that eventually Conan Doyle felt obliged to bring Holmes back 3 years later.
And I kind of get chills thinking about it because there's I forget which book, the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. There's an old illustration of the way that Moriarty and really Holmes meet their demise, supposedly at Reichenbach Falls.
You look like you're on a fun fair, right?
I think just as Doyle would have wanted it, there was this sense of a real kind of epic sweeping nature to how, why, and where things happen. And so it's a fitting kind of majestic and terrifying way for two foes to go at it, you know, and that precipice.